Welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I'm bringing you another episode in our Queer Project series. Today I am joined by Amanda ZUKE, and we will be discussing her life here growing up in the Sault and how they have gotten more involved in the community over the years and how they are now the chair of Sault Pride. So let's get into the episode. Warning. The following contains discussions of discrimination, BIPOC, sex identity, explicit language, and other mature content. Listener discretion is advised, especially for those under 13. We have kept these interviews intact to preserve the voices of our guests.
Let's party.
Yes! All right, so can you state your full name and preferred pronouns?
My name is Amanda ZUKE, and my pronouns are she, they.
And only if you're comfortable, can you tell me how you identify?
This is going to be a list. Polyamorous, genderqueer, demi-woman, and demisexual.
All right. When and where were you born?
I am originally from Sault Ste. Marie. I was born in May of 1976, right here in the Sault, and I've spent most of my life here.
So what was it like growing up in the Sault?
I mean, when you're in it, you don't necessarily notice how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was just a normal childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I was a French immersion kid, so I didn't really hang around with my neighborhood peers. We were from all over the city and beyond at school, so that was maybe a little different than most people experienced.
Yeah.
But all in all, I had a pretty good childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I had friends. I got into volunteering very young. I remember I was an Old Stonehouse youth volunteer by the time I was 11 or 12, and got into doing theater in my teens, and I was always very involved in different bits of work in the community.
Mm. What neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up about half a block behind what is now the Ukrainian church on St. George's. I was on Reed Street. Now, until I was about 10, the church wasn't there. Mm-hmm. But that's the best way to describe the part of town I was in.
Okay. And so did you identify as part of the queer community when you were younger, or did you feel any connection with the community? Was there even really a big community that you knew of?
I wasn't aware of the community, and I didn't have the vocabulary, and I don't think the vocabulary existed back in the 80s, mm-hmm. To really describe who I am. So I really didn't identify with the queer community such as it was. Now I know that there was an underground queer community in town. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I didn't even think about it. Yeah. I wouldn't have even thought about it.
Mm. So you said you went to French immersion.
I did.
Was it FH Clerc and Rosedale?
I was a Collegiate Heights kid.
Oh, okay.
Right from the beginning, we moved into the school when I started grade 1. So I did 8 years at Collegiate Heights. And I still, to this day, I cannot drive down McDonald Hill without thinking that is the wrong building. Something is wrong here. and I don't like it. But we were about 600 students most of the time I was there. We took up almost the whole building. And it was a great way to grow up in two first languages.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
When did you sort of first come out?
I always felt like a defective woman. I was never one for sort of the classic feminine concerns. I wouldn't say female concerns. I would definitely say feminine concerns.
Yeah.
About the way we're socialized to regard appearance as of high importance. It never really resonated with me, and I thought something was wrong with me most of my life. That I had makeup, I could wear makeup, but I couldn't be bothered most of the time. As the meme says, I didn't have a hairstyle, I had hair, and most of the time it had no caterpillars in it. Fashion was never my thing, being on the plus size side of things. I didn't really have a lot of options. So I never identified with femininity, and I saw everybody around me identifying with femininity. And so I tried really hard. And this is something that's actually very common in neurodivergent girls and women, is trying to fit in by emulating the concerns and priorities of one's peer group. But I was so bad at it. I was so bad. And it wasn't until I got into my 40s that the language started to be available to me, that, maybe I wasn't a defective woman. Maybe I was something else. Maybe I could call myself something that didn't center on something being wrong with me. And so genderqueer felt like a really great fit automatically. And demi-woman came later as I did more research into the terminology of the community. And I was reading and I kind of went, oh, like me. Like me. Okay then. As far as polyamory, which I do consider part of the larger queer umbrella, because it is a non-normative form of relational entanglement. That came probably in my 20s. That was a lot earlier for me. As of now, I've had one partner going on 22 years and another for 13 years. So I don't think it's a phase at this point.
Yeah.
And again, with demisexual, it just, I didn't realize that not everybody needed to build that rapport and that closeness with people before becoming attracted to them. I just figured I was dead on normal. And I think it's perfectly normal. It really is. But I didn't realize that there are people who don't experience attraction that way. So when I found out there was a term for it, it was really exciting. I think that's all my identifications. They all came at different points in my life.
Yeah. Besides school with the French immersion, did you have any sort of like other hobbies, after school activities, things like that you sort of did as a kid, and then even into like sort of like what the high school years were like?
In grade school, I was very involved with my church youth group. I was very lucky to grow up in a very active and very arts-affirming group. Even past the point where it didn't make sense to me from a faith perspective, it was still my home from a social perspective and a creative perspective. And then on into high school, I really got involved with community theater, and that transformed my life. It was I was always the let's put on a play kid. So when I actually got involved in the community, it was a revelation. It was the most amazing thing, and I'm still so grateful for the years I spent doing all the plays all the time. Those were my main involvements.
Yeah.
Growing up.
So then, what did you decide to do after sort of high school?
After high school, I experienced my first major autistic burnout toward the end of high school, which I understand now, but had no idea then what was going on. I just knew that I was done. And my family was quite insistent that I had to go on to some kind of further education and do something right away. So I actually went into hairstyling for a few years.
Okay.
And after the first year or two of working in the field, I landed at a barber shop where I stayed for about 3.5 years while I started university. Because at that point I was done with the back-breaking standing.
Yeah.
Really was not a pleasant experience. I loved cutting hair. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the transformation that I could create. But physically, I knew that I wasn't long for it.
Yeah.
So I went to Algoma U. I started out in the fine arts department, and when I couldn't get the classes I needed, I switched to an English degree, finished an English degree, and then from there went on to a master's at Laurentian in humanities, interpretation, and values. And that was the best fit I could possibly have imagined. It was a really good fit for me. We had the opportunity to sort of read community institutions and organizations. And I had a great posting at Sudbury Theatre Centre that year, where I got to explore the fundraising end of things and do some work with the youth theatre as well. So I've kind of bounced all over the place. And then further on from that, I wound up doing the SSW program at Sault College and wound up doing recreation at a nursing home.
Okay.
I really enjoyed bouncing around from one sort of type of work to another. And in the end, now I'm a chaplain. I'm a roaming wedding officiant.
So how did you get into officiating weddings?
Well, I had the background in performance,
Mhm.
and I had a long time sort of personal research focus on comparative religious practice and comparative mythology, and I was very involved from the time I was probably in high school and forward in the pagan community locally. So I came back from grad school with this vision of wanting nobody to have to go through what I went through when I got married, which was having to be prayed at, because of course there's no civil marriage option. At least here in the Sioux. I don't know if that's the same everywhere in Ontario, or if it's a thing in the north or what have you. But not having gotten the kind of wedding that I wanted to make sure that nobody else had to go through the same thing, and that anybody could get a customized wedding the way they wanted. So I connected with a denomination that was looking for someone locally, and my particular experience was right for them. So I've done ongoing training with them over the years, but for getting started, that was where I started, was not wanting anyone else to have the experience that I had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you just sort of do a whole mixture of different types of ceremonies and everything like that?
Yeah. In terms of sort of a ministerial focus, mine is on people who have been hurt by conventional and organized religion, who have drifted away from those things, whose spirituality is sort of in that other category. And those are the people I really serve. And I've had 20 years now of really great experiences customizing ceremonies with couples who want something different. And it's incredibly rewarding.
Going back to sort of like when you were coming out and like coming to like all your like the realizations with all your different identities, how did you feel sort of accepted with within your family, friend group, and then sort of like the larger community at whole, those sort of three different levels?
Well, I'll try and go chronologically. Polyamory was a tough sell for my family. Beyond my family, I've been very accepted. My grandmother, whom I was caring for toward the end of her life, told me I was living like a prostitute, which I don't consider an insult. I'm pro-sex worker, but she very clearly did consider it an insult. But beyond that, at that point, she and my dad were the only ones left living in my family that I really needed to come out to. And my dad was absolutely chill about it. He was a very accepting person. He was another theater junkie like me. He had known and was accepting of everyone. And he got to be friends with all my various partners over the years as I settled into these long-term too, and just really welcomed them to the family because they were part of my family, so they were part of his.
Yeah.
And by the time I figured out the genderqueer thing, my dad was the only one left, and again, was totally chill, never made a big deal about it, just, okay, cool, that's who you are, great. You're the same person you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really a formal, Dad, I've got something to tell you coming out. It was just, I got more and more open about it on social media, and he responded very openly.
Mm-hmm. When did you sort of start getting involved in sort of the queer community here, even just sort of like initial reactions, participating in maybe some events? What was that like? And then how have you sort of settled more into the community nowadays?
Well, I started out going to, now this is way back, some of the Algoma Pride dances with friends, and just feeling very, very comfortable in the crowd, which was kind of a new thing for me because I've never been comfortable in crowds, but I really felt accepted. Like there was no question of whether it was okay to be somebody different. And honestly, that and having various queer friends that I met through theater and through school and so on, that was about it for years and years and years. And then Sochi. The Sochi Olympics, as I'm sure you've heard the story from just about everybody who's been through here, City Council opted not to fly the rainbow flag in support of queer athletes in Sochi. And it came up in social media, I love social media, that in response, a bunch of community members, many of whom were my friends, were going to occupy the city council chambers during city council meeting one night. And so my husband and I kind of looked at each other and went, going? Going. And we were part of that delegation of a merry band of rainbow community members and allies who sat in on City Hall that day. And so I went to a few meetings as Sault Pride was coming together and forming. At that point, I felt that as an ally, it wasn't for me to get too involved. I was very shy about that. Back in the ally years. So I didn't get heavily involved. I attended the very first flag raising when the flag was raised by the security guard because nobody from City Council bothered to show up. That was the only time that happened, by the way. And that was really about it. I went to Pride Fest events here and there over the years. And it wasn't until a friend who was on the committee brought me in to assist with the vigil, the AIDS vigil, that I got involved again. And that year I went from helping with the vigil to attending absolutely everything, hosting an event when there were some wires crossed and nobody else was able to get there from the committee. And the next year I joined the committee first thing, and another committee member and I took over Loud and Proud, the family fun day, and ran with it. And that was immediately pre-COVID. And of course I was part of Sault Pride through the couple of years of COVID cancellation where we were doing the lawn signs, and that was about it. I still have both lawn signs. And then when we came back in 2022, I was back on the Loud and Proud team. And then in the interim between 2022 and 2023, that was when things started happening with protesters, specifically at the library for drag story time. And I jumped in and took it upon myself to put together the community counter-protest. And I was very proud of the turnout we had, very proud of the amazing collection of signs we had, just very proud of the whole event, all in all. And then over the next few months, there was some upheaval and some changes at Sault Pride, and it came down to somebody needing to jump in and keep it happening. And nobody else volunteered. And that is the story of how I became chair of Sault Pride. It wasn't so much me stepping forward as everybody else stepping back. But that said, I jumped in with both feet. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish in the interim. We have added a couple of sort of long-term event additions to our event year. Started out, my team and I added the Rainbow Family Holiday Dinner because we recognize that the holidays are a very difficult part of the year for a lot of the queer community. And we wanted to make an event available where cost would not be an issue for anyone, and where people could come and have a good time, have a great meal, enjoy the company. And that first year we even had Santa Claus. Great time. And also we added an ongoing relationship with International Day of Pink. We initially, in I believe it was 2022, welcomed someone who had been at Stonewall in virtual presence to tell us stories. And Martin was an absolute gem. And then in 2024, we had the opportunity to welcome, as part of the International Day of Pink speaking tour that year, we got to welcome Monica Helms, the creator of the trans flag, and oh my God, she's a hoot. She is absolutely the most fun ever. She created that trans flag that is everywhere now. And she got to speak to us about everything from creating the flag to her time in the Navy, on submarines, before her gender affirmation. And then this year, 2025, we were able to welcome Patrick Hunter here to the museum for a paint night, and he was a delight, an absolute delight. International Day of Pink keeps sending us the most wonderful people, and I hope we can continue this partnership with them because it's absolutely joyful, and the people who get to experience these events come away from it enriched. So we've added that, the Rainbow Family Holiday Dinner and the International Day of Pink partnership to our year. And we're still doing Pride Fest. We've got that coming up. I'm just waiting for the last couple of details to click into place before I can release the calendar. And I feel like Sault Pride is really thriving in a situation where, having lost a pair of absolute rock star leaders, we still survive. Once we were afraid, we were petrified, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, so is there anything else you want to say, sort of like about Pride Fest or things like that?
I feel like I could go on at great length about Pride Fest. It's something I'm really proud of. But I'm going to let that speak for itself and let the rest of our activities speak for themselves. Because I think that the work we do is essentially self-promoting. We're doing great things, and we look forward to welcoming everyone to check them out.
And do you have the dates for Pride Fest this year?
The dates for Pride Fest are July 20th to 27th.
Okay.
I can tell you for sure that we will have our usual opening day of a flag raising at City Hall, a Pride Walk, and then Loud and Proud Family Fun Day. And that we will be closing in the usual way with a brunch on the final Sunday. Everything in between, you're just going to have to wait for the calendar.
Perfect. Sort of, have there been any events locally, provincially, federally, even globally that you feel have really influenced you and things like that, and sort of you felt that sort of an impact or even larger impact, I guess, sort of on our community and things like that?
In terms of my own formation, the moment I left the Anglican Church was when the Lambeth Conference happened, and they came down against same-sex marriage. That was the point at which I was done, and at that point I really didn't have any connection to the queer community. I just knew right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of those formative experiences for me. In terms of the community, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. We have had such incredible community organizers, Mother Gadare and Murray Carson, and my very dear friends Susan and Jeremy, and so on, that it's hard to identify just one great catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole series of great catalysts. Globally, of course, Sochi was our reason for starting.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it really brought the issue home to Sault Ste. Marie in particular, because our city council bucked that trend so hard and wound up on the wrong side of history. Which is not the first time that's happened. Ask me about being a French immersion student, but they certainly are trying to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say I appreciate City Council's ongoing support of not only Sault Pride, but the entire Pride community. The whole rainbow community has been welcomed by our City Council, which is something I think is very important, and really speaks well for our city in a way that not every decision always has.
Yes. All right, so I shall leave it off with our one final last question that we ask everyone. Say if in 100 years the museum was ever to do an exhibit on you, what would be sort of the title and like maybe tagline of your exhibit? And then what would 3 artifacts be that best represent you?
Oh, that's a doozy. First of all, I don't recommend an exhibit on me. Future Sault Museum management, please don't. I'm not that interesting. But if you had to, I feel like the phrase that would serve as a title that would probably represent me fairly effectively would be, I don't wanna and you can't make me. And 3 artifacts. Holy cow. I can't say an exact item, but something representing the Rainbow Holiday Dinner, the Rainbow Family Holiday Dinner, which I hope is still going on in 100 years. Something representing our partnership with International Day of Pink, because I think that's enormously important to who we're trying to be as an organization. stuck. Maybe an archive of what our website looks like now, for comparison with what it could become in 100 years to represent Sault Pride. I can only imagine it won't be a website at that point.
Yeah.
But whatever takes that place in sort of the collective consciousness, something to compare from where we are now to where we'll end up.
Yeah. All right, perfect. So, yeah, well, that was fun. Yes.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might like our blog too. Head over to our website, Sault Museum, that's SAULT museum.ca, and look under Discover. You will find our blog, Museum Musings. We share short synopsis of influential people, historic places, and impactful events in our history. Pictures are always included, and you will be sure to learn a little something new with each post.
Today's quote is from Views of the Sioux by Heather Ingram, illustrated by Graham Smith. This quote is by Ray Raslak, Human Resources Manager at St. Mary's Paper Limited. Quote, "The recently concluded downturn in the forest products industry was particularly challenging for St. Mary's Paper. However, on October 19, 1994, a new ownership group was formed, including partial employee ownership, and early indicators suggest the new St. Mary's is positioned for long-term success." End quote.